Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Yeah, just a couple of us, well, a few of us in the studio, me and a couple Colts today. And Jason's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. I'm going to be talking about tips from the book. The unfinished, unpublished, not available for sale book that I've been writing. And I really don't think it's going to make it to the market because I really don't have the desire to publish it. And by the way, most people don't read anyway, right? I'm not talking about our class, but most people just don't read. It's too hard. Way too hard. You got to turn the pages, you got to pay attention, you got to focus. Way too hard. And with everybody so busy, staying at home, they don't seem to have the energy or the time. So I don't think I'm going to go through the effort to publish it. So I'll just talk about it on the air. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. But I wanted to share with you a story. True story. All stories that we tell here at USA Prepares are true. And going into the meltdown of the United States of America, one of the things that I wanted to do is buy a spare water softener. And the reason I wanted to buy one is because here in our neck of the woods in this part of Missouri, the water is very hard. And that's because it is in these underground limestone voids. So water just percolated down for thousands of years. And it's been sitting there and the water has been absorbing the calcium or the lime. And that lime that has been dissolved by the water, and you know that water is the universal solvent, that lime clogs up pipes, literally. So we have a well, we have hard water, and because the water's hard, it can clog up the valves, toilet valves, faucet valves, shower heads. And what happens is literally shower heads, you have all those little openings. And over time, a month later you have fewer openings. And then a month later you have fewer openings. And within a couple months, those shower heads don't work very well anymore. So you take them apart, put them in vinegar, white vinegar, put them in a jar and disassemble them if you can and shake it around and put it in white vinegar and so forth and rinse and repeat. And dissolve that lime. Well, you can prevent a lot of that if you have a water softener. So for years, as long as we've had this house in Missouri, 15 years, we have had a water softener. We built the house, so we want to preserve the plumbing so it wouldn't get all clogged up. And the one we bought was sold under the Kenmore name by Sears. It was manufactured by Whirlpool. And I think it is probably one of the simplest, best water softeners that you can buy. Well, Whirlpool doesn't make them anymore. Who knows what the availability of Kenmore is anymore, because Sears is bankrupt. So I found the same water softener as this same it looks exactly the same as the model of 15 years ago, but now it's a different color. And it has a different brand name. The brand name is Morton, M-O-R-T-O-N. It's 45,000 grains in capacity. So water softeners are sold by grain capacity and features. And I don't really care too much about features. I would just like it to cycle automatically, have a electromechanical timer, and be very simple to operate. And I found it. I found it at Menards. And Menards sells this Morton branded water softener, which is, well, I believe, the same darn thing as the Whirlpool, which was sold by Kenmore. And to me, it is the cat's meow. It's the best of the best of the best in simple. Okay. So I was delighted to find it, and I ordered it. It's not available in the store. You have to order it, special order. So I special ordered it, paid for it. And I got the notification through email that it arrived, so we went to pick it up yesterday. And it was loaded onto, and when you do this, you don't have to go in the store, because I'm not going into the store because of COVID, the corona panic, right? So our son and Mrs. Finelli happened to be in the big city, Springfield, and they happened to have my old pickup truck, the one that's two-tone, rust plus a little bit of white on it. And they pulled in the back there, showed them the documents that said that we were picking up this water softener. And the employee came over, received the document from us, and loaded the water softener onto the back of the truck. Now, it was on a pallet. So what they did was they took this water softener. Now, this thing is about as tall as a person. Actually, a short person could fit right in the water softener box, and you can close the lid. That's how big this water softener is. So roughly the box is a couple feet by a couple feet footprint, and maybe 5 feet tall, the box. And it was shrink wrapped onto a pallet. And so they tilted the water softener on its side so it wouldn't go flying out the back of the pickup truck from the wind. Came home with it. And I saw it. And I was fit to be tied. Because this water softener was caved in. The box was caved in on 3 sides. And it had a forklift hole through one of the sides. Now, it's real simple to me. That means that someone, somewhere along the line, mishandled this. Either it was put on a truck and it wasn't secured and it rattled around and rolled around and got beat up. Or it got beat up at Menards warehouse, or it got beat up while it was being staged for us to pick up. But it got beat up. And here's my take on this. When I buy something online and I pay for it with a credit card, right then and there, that item is mine because I paid for it. Now, even though I don't have it in my hands, I paid for it. And I expect that that item would be treated carefully. You know, as if I lent someone something that's mine, I would expect them to take care of it. I wouldn't expect them to beat it up, leave it out in the rain. I'd expect them to take care of it. So those are my expectations. Now, it was not left out in the rain, but it was beat up. And we don't know who did it. But I do know it's mine and it was beat up. Now, I know for certain that in the good old days, if I were able to go into a store, any store, and see one of these things on the sales floor, and it was all beat up, I would say, I don't want that one. I'd like one that's not beat up. And by the way, there could be concealed damage, right? Because there's a forklift hole in the side of it, and 3 of the 4 sides are caved in. Well, I bought this as a spare, not the water softener that we have. It's running for 15 years. It's working perfectly. But I know that at some time it's going to quit. And wouldn't it be nice to have the same exact thing? Then I'll have 2 of everything. 2 timers, 2 cases, 2 everything. 2 sets of valves. I have a duplicate because it's the same water softener, just different color and different name on it. So the trip is a little over 100 miles to get to Menards in Springfield for us. And as I said, I was fit to be tied. That it was all banged up. So I called the store and I got the store manager and I explained to him, his name is Brett, B-R-E-T-T. And he did everything right. Everything right. I explained to him that I was surprised that the person with the forklift that loaded it onto the truck didn't say, whoa, 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 geez, look, oh, man, this thing's all beat up. Would it be okay with you all if we open this box and make sure it's not damaged? Would that be okay? The person with the forklift did not do that, which is a surprise to me, because if I were operating that forklift or I were the salesperson, that's what I would do. I would say, ma'am, sir, I didn't see this before I went to pick it up, but here's what I've noticed. And it shouldn't be like this. Would it be okay if we opened it up? But the forklift operator didn't do that, which was a surprise to me. And that's what I told the store manager. And I said, now, I have pictures of this. And by the way, we opened it up. I didn't want to open it up. I wanted to just put it in the garage and leave it there until we needed it. But I had to open it up to see if there was any concealed damage. And when we took it off the truck, you could hear parts rattling around in this box. Could that have been done at the store? Absolutely. Could they have shaken the box to see? Absolutely. But they didn't. So we turned it on its side. I took my utility knife, cut the sealing tape on the bottom, opened the flaps, and lifted the box off the water softener because it's so heavy you can't take it. You just can't lift it out of this box. So we lifted the box after we cut the bottom folding parts of the box that were sealed with tape. We lifted the box off, and sure enough, there's all kinds of parts fell out. The top was disconnected. The lid was disconnected. There's plastic parts that were disconnected. The canister inside, the medium, the fiberglass tank with the plastic balls in it, that was cockeyed. And so we took some pictures of it. Took some pictures before and after opening the box. And I told the store manager, Brett, that I had these pictures. If you'd like them, I can send them to him. I said, but you've got this on video. I'm sure you can just look at I gave him the customer name and all that. And he said he could look it up and call me back in 5 minutes. He called me right back and said, you're right. He said, I have two solutions for you. One is if you want to come back, we'll give you the new, more expensive model, same grains, 45,000 grains, but this one has Wi-Fi. It's more expensive, but we'll give you that. Or we'll give you $75 off the one that you already have. Will either of those options work for you? And I said, well, I appreciate that. I believe I can put this all back together. And I don't really want the Wi-Fi model. So I choose the option, the $75 credit. And that's what we did. $75 credit. Now, he gave me his personal number if anything doesn't work right. Now, isn't it, or his number, direct number, I should say, at the store. Now, the point of this story is, one, the salesperson / forklift person should have offered to inspect the box, but didn't. Why? I don't know. If I were there, I would have done that. Two, the store manager did the right thing by trying to figure out a mutually acceptable compensation, which he did. And everything's good. So here we are with training for Menards. And Cathy's joining us. So I can almost guarantee, class, that this story will be used by Menards Corporate to teach their employees the proper and ethical way that customers should be treated. Now, Menards lost $75 on this transaction, which is about 20% maybe. Now, what are they going to do? I believe that they're going to look at the video when this water softener came in to see if it was trucked in by an independent trucking company and they damaged it, or whether Menards damaged it, or who the heck damaged it. Because Menards is not going to stand for losing $75 on transactions like this. They're going to fix this problem. So there are many points to this story. One is, if you buy something and it's banged up in shipping, well, you didn't buy it agree to buy it banged up, did you? You didn't shop at the dented, can department, did you? You bought first quality, and you expected first quality. And so if you don't get first quality, you should call and let the company know. Now, I'm not saying yell and scream, because that doesn't work. But what you can do is explain in a clear, concise manner to the boss what happened. Now, the boss doesn't, believe me, the boss does not want to get calls like this, because the boss won't be able to do the things that bosses do if they're tied up getting call after call after call. So the boss is going to fix this. I know for a fact that Brett is going to have a meeting with the employees and say, hey, listen, I talked to this guy, and he's absolutely right. We delivered a damaged product, and we charged them a full amount for it. That's unacceptable. We have to pay attention. And what happens is, if a customer is unhappy, let's say you have a lousy, the good old days, a lousy meal at the restaurant. When people used to go to restaurants. They tell 11 people. If they have a great experience, they might tell one. So bad news travels far, wide, and fast. So the point of all this is, heads up to corporations. Try to take care of your customers, and you won't have to lose $75 on a transaction. Now, I didn't call Menards and say, I want. I didn't say that at all. I just said, I'd like you to know that this is what happened. And it's over 100 mile round trip for me to come back. Can you take a look at the video? Menards came back with me with an offer. I never said anything about $75 or a new and improved Wi-Fi model. So I think that Brett, the store manager, did the right thing. Congratulations, Brett. And I know that this is going to be a learning experience for Menards. And I actually believe, literally, that they're going to use this audio, because I'm going to send it to them as part of their training in corporate management. I think there's a lot of good that comes out of bad situations like this. Except for, the forklift operator obviously is going to get spanked. Cathy in Ohio, welcome.
Hi, Vince. How are you?
Hey, I'm really well. How about you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
So do you have
Go
ahead.
I'd say too bad about your water softener.
Well, it happens, but 100% of it, I believe, was due to carelessness. Either carelessness of the trucking company, and we've got a saying around here, Missourians will throw something in the back of the truck and I'll see it and I'll go, are you comfortable with that? Don't you want to tie that down? Oh, no, it'll be all right. And it'll be all right means, it might make it, it might not fall over. It might not, slide out of the back of the pickup. It might be okay. But the expression here is, oh, it'll be all right. Well, I think that someone, that handled this thought it was going to be all right and was careless with it, either going too fast with the forklift or putting it in the back of a semi and went around a curve without securing this thing so it wouldn't fall over, and it landed on other packages or boxes or the trailer floor, or other boxes landed on it. But whatever it was, I believe it could have been avoided, and I would put that in the carelessness aisle. I really would. Cathy, we're going into a break. We'll be right back. I know you've got some things to share with us. I believe they're about tips for living better, faster. Well, not faster, better, easier ways of doing things and doing them right. Cathy's with us. Cathy's with us. Cathy in Ohio, our domestic engineer. Cathy, so what do you have for us today?
Vince, there was a few things that I was thinking that people could try to get ahead of time. One thing that I bought a few years ago was there's a salt, and it's like a Redmond makes it, and they do make it like an agricultural version of it, but it's like a Celtic salt. It comes, I think, from Utah in the mines there. And I bought some a couple years ago, at an agricultural store, like a feed store, and it's not as fine as the regular fine salt that you could put in a salt shaker, but you can still use it for oatmeal, soup, stews, anything with a liquid, it dissolves. But the nice thing about it was very cheap, but it has a lot of nutritional value. It has 60 plus different minerals in it. And I'm thinking, okay, if we get to the point where our food is not as nutritious, if you have the salt on hand, then this bag that I bought, I think it was like a 25-pound bag, maybe more. And it was like $11 or $12. And I know people use them for their cattle and things like that, but my research, when I checked into it, there were people that used it. And like I said, you can buy the fine if you want to put that in your salt shaker or use the Himalayan, but that was just an idea that if you just keep it, I put mine in like jars, some canning jars, and I just labeled it. I think it'll probably last me the rest of my life for as much as I use it, but I use it for like my cooking. So that's just an idea that I think we may have trouble getting our vitamins and our minerals, and the price of that has gone up tremendously. I went to my health food store a couple weeks ago, and some of the homeopathic remedies that I get went up 25 to 30% across the board. I looked at the price and I asked her if that was right, and she said yes, they all went up. So that was just a thought. I don't know if you've ever used that kind of salt, Vince.
Yes. We buy it on the internet. Himalayan. It's pink salt. Dr. Norm Shealy, our medical doctor, recommends it, and so that's what we buy. Now, if you want to have a store of salt for $5, you can get 25 pounds from Sam's Club. Now, I have no financial incentive to mention Sam's Club, and the only time I do is when there is a benefit for us. Okay, I don't particularly like Sam's Club. They have fallen down in many, many ways. They used to have people who would research the products and make sure that they had the best of the best, and I think some of those left their jobs or got fired or something, because I don't think they pay as much attention as they used to. You know, kind of like Sears had department after department of evaluators to make sure that they only sold the best of the best and that they would stand behind what they sold. Well, Sam's Club, I don't think, does that as well as they used to do that. And but they do sell Morton table salt, 25 pounds, $4.98 in club only. Now, here is an extreme measure that you can take, and we have taken this measure. Since we have water softener, we need water softener salt. The water softener is absolutely useless unless you have the consumable, which is the water softener salt. And we buy either Morton's or another equivalent brand, about 40 to 44 pounds in a bag, and it's roughly $5 to $6 a bag. We buy it by the pallet load from Menards, and we like that. They sometimes have the 11% off sale, and we buy that. Now, if we have to feed it to our cows, we're just going to rip open those bags and feed the right amount of salt to the cows. So it's water softener salt, and if we had to, we could eat it, and we could feed it to the cows as well, because without salt they'll die. So those are a couple thoughts, and I'm with you on that. What's next, Cathy?
Vince, I was talking about like the supplements and the remedies. I found that anything, for the most part, if you buy it in the little bottle within the capsules, it's a lot more expensive because somebody has to put it in capsules and package it. So when I started seeing the price of some of the things that I wanted to have on hand, I started looking into buying them in bulk form, in powder form. And some of them aren't that great tasting. But what I do is I take a little bit of water and I might mix a couple together, whatever I feel like I'm taking at the time. And I put a little bit of stevia, a couple drops of stevia, and I just drink it down. Now, some things I put in capsules. I have a little capsule machine. I have 2 different sizes. I think one's a 00, one's a 0 capsule, and I'll put them in there. But I've gotten used to, okay, it doesn't taste good. You just drink it down and then drink a glass of water after it. But it's a lot cheaper, and you can get online and check out some of the bulk places. I know Mountain Rose Herbs is a good one. There are some other bulk supplement companies. I just kind of look at the source. I look to see where it's sourced from. Is it sourced from China, or is it sourced from the United States, or places where maybe you might feel a little more comfortable buying? But that's something that I have done in the past 2 years, is whether it's the turmeric or magnesium or even like the diatomaceous earth. I like to have that on hand, or activated charcoal. It's so much cheaper if you buy it in bulk. So it's something for people to save money, because I've just noticed the price of supplements and minerals they have just doubled, I would say, in the last few years. And so that is a little more economical.
Okay, so all you do, class, is go to the internet, and let's say you go to eBay. Now, you may find eBay is the best way to go, but you may find Amazon is the best way to go. But really, make sure you know your source of the manufacturer or the repackager of the product, and make sure you trust it. But it's simple. You can type vitamin or vitamin space C, okay? And comma bulk, B-U-L-K. Or you can type turmeric, comma bulk at eBay or Amazon, and you'll find it in packages, and it will be the powdered form. And as Cathy said, you can buy the capsules. You can buy the gelatin capsules, and they're different sizes. Take a look at the relative size of these capsules, and make sure you're comfortable with the physical size for swallowing. And you can buy a capsule machine. So let's say for somewhere around $20, you can buy a capsule filling machine. And what it is it's a matrix. It's a multi-layered plastic matrix, and you put the capsules in open side up. You take half the capsule, and you put them in, let's say 100 of these capsules. You put them in open side up, and then you pour the powder, whether it be vitamin C or turmeric or whatever it might be, onto this surface of the capsule machine. And you have a little squeegee, and that will move the powder into the capsules. And then you put the tops on it, and you have just made 100 capsules. You've filled 100 capsules. So they have automated machines at factories that do this, but you can do it manually. We have a capsule filling machine, and we have the capsules, and we have the powders. So, yes, you absolutely can do it, and you can save money. And I suggest you do it. Cathy's right on the money with that. Cathy, what's next?
Vince, we have talked about this a couple times, but I wanted to mention it because I think it's so important. I think Kyle made a comment earlier in the week or last week about if the depression or the economy suffers for, let's say, the next 8-10 years, the availability and the price, we don't know what we can afford, but I have a couple sets of the Revere ware. I still have my original set from before I got married in the 70s. And I'm still using them. The handles are a little bit worn, but not to where they can't be used. So I actually have in my cupboard, I have 3 1-quart and 1.5 quart pots. I have 2 2-quart pots, and then I have the big stock pot. But I don't use the microwave. So there's times I'm using all 3 or 4 burners at one time if I'm making several different things at the same time. But the Teflon pans, which I don't use, but those don't last that long. I mean, in a couple years, that coating all comes off. So if you don't have a backup and you can't get them or you can't afford them, at least if you have some stainless steel or cast iron pot, it's something that you can be able to use for probably the rest of your life as long as you maintain them.
Okay, here's a comment on what you just said, Cathy. You're right. Absolutely right. So we still have, Mrs. Finelli and I still have the Revere ware from my mom, from her kitchen, my mom and dad, and from Mrs. Finelli's mom and dad. So we have that, and plus we have our own when we got married in the 70s. So we still have that. It still works fine. but there's something that you should avoid doing, class. Number one, you need to, if you have an electric range, absolutely be careful not to overheat or boil out the contents in a Revere pan because you'll warp the bottom. That would not be good. Number two, don't put it in the dishwasher because the dishwasher detergent is brutal over time on the Bakelite plastic handles. That would be the knob at the top of the lid and the handles on the side of a pan or the grab handles on the side of a larger pot. So don't put it, wash it by hand, and I'll tell you how I do it. I use, and we bought a bunch of these because I'm thinking that it's going to be hard to get all kinds of things, including, but not limited to those stainless steel scrubbers. So we bought a bunch of those, well, while you could still get them in the good old days. And, what I do is when I wash a pot, I put it in the sink right away and I rinse off whatever's in it to make it easier to get that hard baked on or cooked on, food off. So I put water in the pot. And then as more and more dishes go into the sink, I make sure that they go into that pot if they'll fit, and I fill it up with water. Then I take those dishes out and I use a drop or two of Dawn on one of those stainless steel scrubbers, and I get it right away. And then I put it in the drying rack. So that's how I do it. So over time, these stainless steel pots get more and more polished on the inside because of that stainless steel scrubber, polishing and polishing and polishing. And they work so well and for so long. And I feel that they'll probably last 100 years, at least, if you take care of them. So those are my thoughts on Revere. Teflon is a really, it's a slippery surface. It's extremely slippery. And what makes us think that it's so slippery on the side that we want to use, but the other side is strong enough to adhere to the aluminum substrate? The answer is it doesn't adhere very well. It's a weak substance. So if you hit it with a knife, you're going to peel it. And then it starts peeling more and more and more, and then you get to eat it. So you're eating it while you're cooking with it. You know, little bits of vapors come off, and you're getting to eat that. And then ultimately you look at that pan and you go, you know what, it's too far gone, so we'll throw it away. But that does not happen with a Revereware pan or pot or skillet because it doesn't have Teflon, at least the kinds that we use. So you can use a cooking oil like olive oil, avocado oil, or butter, and it works great. It works great. There's no reason to have any Teflon pans in your house. None. We'll be right back. Cathy, we've been talking about price increases, inflation on quality items for quite some time now, and we predicted at the beginning of the corona panic that this would happen. And I'm looking on eBay right now at a Snap-on brand 3/8 inch flex head ratchet. So this is just a ratchet. It's not a tool set. It's one ratchet. And it's 3/8, which would be the common size that, most of us would want to use for general purpose, mechanic type work. $149 plus $12 shipping for a used ratchet. Now, that's crazy. These are crazy prices. Now, you could go and get a whole Chinese factory outlet tool set for less than that, okay? But it's junk. So, for example, we are on our third set of Harbor Freight Tools ratcheting breaker bars. Now, a breaker bar is something that you loosen tough nuts and bolts with. And they make one that has a ratchet head. So it's a little bit different from a ratchet. Fits in tight places. It's a really great concept. But the tools break every 6 months. So what do? Either we just say, let's buy a whole bunch of them and consider them disposable, or we bring them back. Now, eventually, Harbor Freight is either they're selling them to homeowners that don't use them as tools and just put them in a toolbox and say, I got me a ratcheting breaker bar, and they don't know that it's of light duty construction, or Harbor Freight is either going to redesign it so that it doesn't break, or they're going to discontinue it because they're lousy. I mean, they're a great concept when they work, but we bash our knuckles with these darn things because they fail at the worst time. So there's a lot to be said for why quality U.S. tools are so expensive, and they're going up, up, and up. And I bid on them on the internet, and I get beaten a lot, and I'm willing to spend more than most people. But there's just one other guy who's willing to spend $2.50 more than I am. And it seems like we lose out on tools because other people have figured out that the Chinese tools are substandard. Cathy, back to you.
Oh, Vince, you're right. And I saw a picture of it. Somebody took a screenshot, and it was at a thrift store, and it was some kind of I think it was like a toaster oven or something. And they said, sells on eBay now for $49, but they had it for like $20. So even the thrift stores are checking like eBay to see what the older stuff is going for.
Yeah, and those toaster ovens, I'll bet in the good old days, and I'm talking, December and earlier, were probably $3, $4, or $5, maybe even $2, right?
Yeah. And Vince, I guess I'm glad you said something about the Revereware. I did not realize that the dishwasher hurt those handles.
Yeah, it does. It does. As a matter of fact, the dishwasher hurts a lot of things. And whether you use Cascade or some other brand of dishwasher detergent, it is caustic. And so if you put in a brand new clear glass, whether it be, let's say a wine glass, for example. We don't drink much wine. I mean, gosh, if we had a bottle of wine, it'd probably last 20 years. But because we don't want to. It's not that we're, it's some religious thing or we're, anti-wine. It's not like that at all. We just don't have the desire. Well, if you take a wine glass, a nice brand new wine glass, and you put it in the dishwasher, 3 or 4 times later, you're going to look at it and it's going to look cloudy. It's going to look like it's been etched, and it will look dull and dingy. So never wash clear glass if you want it to remain, pristine in a dishwasher. Even if it's a light blue color, a blue tinted glass, or light green or light rose color, don't put it in the dishwasher. Even the French clear glass coffee mugs. Mrs. Finelli and I used to like them. Maybe it was a period we went through and we thought that was the way to drink coffee through, clear French glass coffee mug. Put them in the dishwasher like most people would. And now you look at them and they go, gosh, it looks like it needs to be washed. And it just came out of the dishwasher. So it will destroy the finish because it is the dishwashing detergent. It's not the dishwasher. It's the detergent because the detergent has chlorine and other additives in it, which make it very caustic. So those are my thoughts on the dishwasher. But we use the dishwasher. We use the dishwasher, many times a day. As a matter of fact, we have a couple spare dishwashers used. I bought them on Craigslist in the good old days because I thought, gosh, I don't think they're going to make good quality dishwashers anymore. So all of our dishwashers are stacked up for deployment later. And they're all Whirlpool, every single one of them, because they make the best dishwashers, in my opinion. General Electric, substandard. And all the other brands, all the Asian brands, substandard. And if you listen to Kevin, our appliance technician, he'll tell you, Whirlpool for just about every appliance. That's the best in class. We'll be right back with Cathy. Cathy, do you want to stay with us?
Sure, Ben.
Okay. All right, I've got some things, and I know you do too. Cathy, our domestic engineers with us, and we're talking about tips from the book and Cathy's book. I don't know if she's written these things down, but maybe she's going to publish a book or keep one for her family uses. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Cathy's with us in Ohio. Class, I want to mention that in our kitchen, we have multiple circuits on the counter. And so Mrs. Finelli makes bread. She's got a bread making machine. And it's a Zojiruchi, and she has another one. And it's I think it's a Toastmaster, I think. And it has a heating cycle that uses a lot of watts, close to maybe 1,000 watts when it heats up. But it doesn't heat up all the time. So it doesn't use much electricity, but when it does, it does. And she has a mixer, a Kitchenaid Mixer that we got when we were first married. So that darn thing's about 40 years old. but it's got a motor that, it's a pretty big motor. It's the kind you see on sale for Christmas, around a couple $100, that one. And we have a turbo oven, a Farberware turbo oven. All these things are older machines. And the problem with that is that if the element comes on for baking bread at the same time the turbo oven goes into, the heating cycle, it could trip a circuit breaker. Now, if it does, when the bread making machine's on, the bread machine forgets what it's doing, and you have to start over and throw out, the dough. So what do you do in a situation like that? Well, what I did was I said to Mrs. Finelli, I tell you what, I can take this duplex receptacle and I can replace it with with two, instead of just one outlet, two, side by side. And we'll call one of them circuit number 2, because that's what it was, and we'll call the other one circuit number 5, because that was unused. A K5 for the kitchen, circuit number 5, K2 for kitchen, circuit number 2, and there's a K1 for, and so forth. So she said, that's a great idea. So what I did was I cut out the box, the plastic, blue plastic box, and I added another Romex cable, 12-2 with ground. That's a yellow cable. And I wired it into the breaker panel. So side by side, she has 2 receptacles. One of them is circuit number 2, the other is circuit number 5, and she can have her bread machine on one of them and the toaster oven or the mixer or whatever she wants on the other one, and it won't trip the breaker and confuse the computer in the bread making machine. Okay? So you can do that. And what was the cost? Oh, I don't know, maybe $5 for the wire, which we had. We bought 1,000-foot spools of wire when we built the house. We had some left over, and I used some of that, and we have a bunch of receptacles, and I keep them in plastic screw-tight, screw lid containers so that they don't oxidize and they last a long time. So we've got plenty of receptacles and switches and so forth, and boxes. And when I buy the boxes, I buy the case of them. And when I built the house, I bought 100 boxes in a case, and I have a few of those left over. So, and they were maybe 18 cents a piece. So the cost very little. And what I'm saying is, yes, you can add another circuit to your circuit panel if you need it in the kitchen for whatever reason or wherever you want. Yes, you can. And if you want to get the book on how to do it, that's Black & Decker's book. And I've talked about that. It's the complete guide to home wiring, the best in the business. And you can get it for, I don't know, maybe $6 or so, maybe even less, used, shipped on eBay. Cathy, any comments?
Yeah, Vince, that's a smart idea, because I do have the same thing that you have. If you're plugging in everything, and I'm sure it happens during Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving where people have crock pots and ovens going and every outlet is used. So that's a brilliant idea. That's smart.
Well, I know, Cathy, I know your husband can do it. In class, let me give you the name of that book. You can go to eBay and, you can type in Black & Decker, B-L-A-C-K, Decker, D-E-C-K-E-R. So I guess there was a guy named Black and a guy named Decker, and, they had a tool company, and, that company, offered for sale the complete guide to home wiring. Now, the one I have is the edition that has a light switch on the front cover. It says expanded and revised. It's not the newest one, but I think it's the best one. And it has a light switch that is white and blue. It's painted blue, and you'll see it. You'll see it on eBay. That is the one I think you should get. That's the one I have. I know for sure it works. And I have a friend who works at an auto parts store. He's the store manager of the auto parts store. And I bought him this book and used. And I don't mind giving gifts that are used. I don't mind it. I'm not embarrassed. And as long as it's okay with them, it's okay with me. And so I got this book and I wrote on it. I put his name and his wife's name. I said something like, if you read this, you will know more than most electricians. And so he read it. And he deals with our son a lot because our son buys a lot of auto parts from him. And he mentioned that, on page such and such, he was shocked to read that because now he's concerned about the wiring in his home. because he knows it's not done right. And that's the point. That's the point. And, we had one of our instructors call in, and they bought a new camper trailer, and, they let someone use it, and, the visitor plugged in a hairdryer and a curling iron, and there was fire coming out of the wall. Smoke was coming out of the wall because of the improper wiring. And she mentioned this on the air with me, and I diagnosed the problem right away. She was surprised that I was able to diagnose exactly what happened, why it happened, and how to fix it without ever having seen it. Because it's a common mistake. People take shortcuts, and they're unacceptable. And you can learn how to do it the right way with this book. So I think if you have a home, and if you think you might be tinkering with a screwdriver and wiring and electricity, you need this book. I bought this book, and I wired our complete house, thousands and thousands of feet of wire, using this book and the National Electric Code and my own ideas to improve on both of them. And we have never had a single electrical failure in 15 years, not one. Not one. Because of what I did. Now, we have had a socket wear out, a receptacle. And, maybe another day we can talk about how to buy receptacles. You can buy the 35-cent ones, 10 for $3.50. Or, well, I'll tell you right now. Or for the kitchen, they have another grade which is a little better than that. It's called spec, S-P-E-C, as in specification. Spec grade. So the inexpensive ones are 15 amps. Okay, 1800 watts. Or you can get the heavier duty ones, which are called the spec grade, which are 20 amperes or 2400 watts. Now, for kitchen appliances, I suggest you get the spec grade. You don't need them all over the house. You don't need them for a TV or a stereo or, light duty conveniences. But for the toaster oven, for the toaster, the microwave oven, if you happen to have one of those, you need the spec grade, in my opinion. Because what happens is, you'll notice when I'll tell you how you can tell if your socket's starting to get bad. When you plug in the plug into that receptacle in the kitchen and it feels gritty, it's probably not because you're not a good housekeeper. It's probably because the contacts in the socket have become pitted through the electrical contact, the rush of current across that connection where the plug meets the receptacle. Okay? So if it feels gritty, it's worn and it may arc, and it may cause what's called an arc fault. And you've all seen examples of welding. And don't look at the welding, spark because it can blind you. Okay, well, you know that. Well, that's an arc. Okay, typically an arc welder. Well, what could happen with a faulty circuit, a faulty connection, a weak connection, is an arc fault. And that can happen inside your wall at the receptacle if you have a pitted connection. So I suggest that you check those receptacles in the kitchen. If they feel weak or loose, replace it. Now, if you haven't done it before, go to YouTube and find out how to do it. Be careful. Shut off the electricity. Make sure for certain it is disconnected before you work on electricity, because even 120 volts can kill you. It really can. And when I work on electricity, I use one hand, my right hand. Okay. And that way, I'm not going, if I use both hands, I could put electricity from, let's say, my right hand across my chest to my left hand. And I could give myself a heart attack. And so could you. So it's not like I'm special or predisposed to heart attacks. It's electricity can be a killer. So if you use only one hand, the only place electricity can go is from that hand to your feet. And if you're wearing, insulated shoes, it's not likely you're going to electrocute yourself. So one hand. Okay. Those are some of the thoughts. Cathy, any comments?
Vince, when my husband was helping a friend build a house, he's not an electrician, but my friend asked him, "Can you help me wire it?" And my husband said yes. So it was a 2-story home, and my husband wired it. And when they had to call in for the inspection, in Ohio, the homeowner has to be the one to wire it. So the inspector came and started asking our friend, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And he finally said, "Look, I didn't wire it." And he looked at my husband and he said, "He wired it, but I helped him." And the inspector walked around, looked at it, walked outside for a while, came back in, and he said, "Why did you wire it this way?" So my husband told him, "Well, if I put something in the ceiling, if you ever want to have a paddle fan up there or a light fixture, it's right there. And I put extra outlets in the basement, extra outlets in the bathroom and in the kitchen so that you wouldn't draw too much wattage." So he explained everything that he did, and inspector went downstairs and came back up, went outside, came back, and finally he said, "I wish everybody in our county would wire a home like this, because I've never seen a home wired so professionally." And then he left. So they thought they were going to get fined because our friend did not wire it. My husband did, and they went downstairs like a day later, and he did approve it. But I know my husband was proud of that, but I can imagine you have the same situation. But it just, if you're going to do it, try to do it right and not cut corners, especially when it comes to something like wiring.
Okay. And I think I know exactly what your husband did with the ceiling fan. There's the box in the ceiling. And class, here's what typically happens. When the previous owner built the house, they weren't thinking about a ceiling fan if you bought a used house. And so you have a light switch on the wall and it turns on the light in the ceiling. And because they weren't thinking about a ceiling fan, they weren't thinking about the weight that a ceiling fan has and the torque of the blades and the motor as that ceiling fan starts up. So they use a standard ceiling light box, which is not adequate for supporting the weight and the torque of a ceiling fan. And it's dangerous because it can't support that heavy weight. And the overtime shock after shock after shock of that fan starting up. All right. So what typically happens is there's a pull chain, and you pull this chain and it starts the fan, and maybe there's another one that starts the light. Well, if you knew in advance that you're going to have a ceiling fan there, you'd have the right box to support the weight, which costs $10 and not 18 cents. So what I was trying to say before we went into the break, class, was that if you're wiring it yourself, you can do it right. So, for example, I used to broadcast from our dining room, and I turned that into a studio and had a 9-foot long harvest table. And I set up my equipment on there as an antique table, probably close to a couple 100 years old. And so in the dining room, it has a very tall ceiling, about, maybe 15 feet tall. And it's got beams. And when when our son and I were building the house and we wired that particular room, we put in a 4-gang box for the light switch. And so because the dining room table is so long, we decided that we'd hang a chandelier from, not an expensive chandelier, but a chandelier from each of the, 2 of the 5 beams. And so there's one light switch for one of the chandeliers, another light switch for another chandelier, another light switch for the fan, the ceiling fan that hangs down between them, and another light switch for indirect lighting. Okay? So we wired that knowing that we might do this, and we did. So it's really inexpensive to do it at first. It's really expensive to do it after the walls are in. Okay? So think about it beforehand. And what you'll find out, if you want to buy somebody's used house, you'll find out that they didn't think through how they were going to live in it because they didn't design it. Somebody else designed it, like an architect might have designed it, or a builder might have designed it. But they didn't think about how you might be living in it. So we have never seen, not one house that was a used house that either we bought or someone else bought that was done right. Not one. For example, in our kitchen, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm just telling you how we think, which is different. So in our kitchen, the house plans showed a place for a refrigerator. And, a refrigerator freezer. And I thought, that's ridiculous. First of all, they've got it in the wrong place. Second of all, why wouldn't you put your freezer in the kitchen right next to your refrigerator? Why not get the 2 all refrigerator and all freezer to match? Why not do that and put it in the kitchen where you want the freezer? Why do you want to put your refrigerator in the garage? Well, because if it's in the garage, it was an afterthought. The cabinets were already in. It was somebody else built the house, And he said, shoot, we got a freezer. Where are we going to put it? Well, let's put it in the garage. That's why they're in the garage, because it wasn't thought through the first time. So in our kitchen, we have a refrigerator right next to the freezer, and it looks like one of these Sub-Zero things. It's not. It's just a plain old Frigidaire all refrigerator next to an all freezer. And it looks like they go together. Actually, it almost looks like they're one unit, but they're not. They're two standalone units. And behind them, there are two separate circuits. One electrical circuit is for the freezer, and another one is for the refrigerator. And each circuit is right behind the appliance, right where it should be. And a builder saw that, and, he was visiting the house when it was under construction. He saw that, and he thought, wow, I've never seen that before. Are they two different circuits? Yeah. Did we have to put two different circuits in? No. But I thought that over time, there would be a time when the refrigerator compressor would be called for, and the freezer compressor would be called for, and both of them would try to power up at the same time. And when they do, they use between 2 and 3 times the running current to start up that compressor, and it might trip the circuit. And if I didn't know about it, we might lose the food in the refrigerator and the freezer because the circuit tripped. Now, to prevent that, all I did was add another circuit, so we have separate circuit for the refrigerator and separate for the freezer. It's simple. It's real easy to do. And how much extra did it cost? Probably $5, literally, for the wire. Cathy, any comments?
Vince, that's really smart. I think it just goes to pre-planning and thinking ahead and not just assuming that something is done, right, especially with a used home. I really think that's smart to have the extra wattage that you need, or the extra voltage. I don't know the term, but just to have that in case you have it, you need it.
It's actually both. It's actually extra voltage, because if you load down a circuit, okay, let's say you have a circuit, let's say the breaker panel's in the garage, where it typically is in most homes, and let's say on the other side of the house, the longest run of cable feet, you've got a circuit and you're loading that down, and you've got somewhere in the middle another receptacle. Well, by loading it down with an appliance, you have less voltage and you have less available wattage. So you're right. It's both. Shoot, boy, today's broadcast is going fast, Cathy. I've got a couple more comments, and I'm sure you do. You go first when we come back, okay, Cathy? Just a quick comment before we go back to Cathy. So I just went to eBay during the break, and I looked up spark plug sockets. Now, there are two common sizes for American spark plugs. One is 5/8 of an inch, and the other is 13/16 of an inch. Those are the two common sizes to go over the spark plug. And now these are just two sockets, okay? No ratchet, no extension, just two sockets shipped, used. And the description, nice, used condition, has scratches and wear marks, no owner engravings. Okay, so it doesn't have the initials of somebody engraved on the sockets, but they're used and scratched. They're made by Snap-on. The two common sizes, shipped $54.95 for two used sockets. Now, that's what I'm talking about, this inflation. Inflation, now, is it a quality product? Yes. Is it multiple times better than SK Wayne? No. Is it better than than Craftsman? Maybe a little bit, but, I'm talking vintage Craftsman. Is it 5 times better, 3 times better? No. No, it's better, but it's not multiple times better. So it shouldn't be multiple times the price. But what's happening is people are buying vintage tools made in America, chrome vanadium tools, because they're the world-class best. And I bought about 100 screwdrivers, used Craftsman screwdrivers, vintage, 40 years old. And I paid about $120 for about 100 used screwdrivers. Why? Well, I could get Harbor Freight ones for way less, brand new. But they're nowhere near as good. They won't last anywhere near as long, and they will not last generations. So I bought these for great-grandchildren that I'll never see, because I thought that this is the end of the quality American products. So that's what I've been doing. I've been buying things when I think they are at a reasonable price, and reasonable now is way more expensive than it used to be in the good old days, like December and earlier. Cathy, back to you, your comments.
Well, Vince, that's smart. They're not making things that well anymore, and I think you're right. I think people are realizing the other stuff is just not going to last.
Well, you know, Cathy, I get under cars a lot. Cars and trucks. And I see how flimsy these cars are. I see what happens when someone hits a bird with, drives into a bird with a new, like 5 years old or newer vehicle. I'm talking about like a, General Motors or an Asian vehicle. And the damage that's done by hitting a bird, let alone a deer will total a vehicle. Absolutely total it. And I'm not going to get in one of those. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I asked our son to go to a salvage yard. And here's how we do it at salvage yard. We know the people who own or run the salvage yard. So we say, look, would it be okay with you if we just go to the yard and bring our own tools and take off the parts that we want and tell you what we bought or what we got, and you just tell us how much we owe you and we pay you. So we do it without going in. Okay, so in terms of coronavirus panic, that's how we handle it. So it's outside. They know we're there. We don't steal from them, and they know that. So it works out really well. So I bought a used trailer hitch for a Chevy pickup truck, a used one. Now, why? Because I know that by putting a trailer hitch onto the back of and bolting it to the frame of a pickup truck, it will add like another bumper to that rear of that vehicle. So I have now two bumpers now. The one that looks like a bumper and the one that is a trailer hitch. And it's much, much, much stronger. So whether you're going to tow a vehicle or not, if you want some rear impact protection, some more rear impact protection, you can buy a used trailer hitch, class 2, the heavy one, for $50. And is it crazy not to do it? I think it's crazy not to do it, because who knows who's going to be behind you and whether that guy or gal is on their phone or reading or putting makeup on or tying their shoes, whatever they happen to be doing that they shouldn't be doing when they should be paying attention to operating their vehicle, talking on the phone, whatever they're doing. I don't want them crashing into me without as much protection as I can get. So for $50, I have more protection in the rear, twice as much, because I've got this massive, massive trailer hitch. And another thing, if you have the ball on your hitch, it sticks out another, 8-10 inches. And so if you're parked, the guy that's going to, touch park and figure out how close he can get to the rear of your car, the first thing he's going to feel is that trailer hitch going through his radiator. And that's a good thing. That's a valuable lesson that they'll never forget. So, but the problem with that is people steal those, the balls. They steal them right off the back of the trailer hitch. So you need to make sure that, you bolt it on or have a lock or something so it doesn't get stolen, because ours have been stolen. Any comments, Cathy, about that?
Yeah, Vince, and I've hit my shins on it many times going behind my husband's truck.
Yeah, we have those same bruises here. You only have to do it, a couple times and you go, you know what? I'm going to take the longer way around. Yeah. Oh, here's another thing. While we've mentioned trailer hitches, here's something that I've never seen anybody do. Maybe your husband does it, Cathy, but I've never seen anybody do it firsthand, and I've never met you or your husband. But what we do is we will, before we put a trailer, whether it be a gooseneck or a tag-along trailer on our vehicle, pull it, we wipe the ball off with a shop rag, get all the dust off it, because the dust on it is abrasive and it will wear out the hitch. It will wear out, where the ball and the hitch, connect. So we wipe it off and then we put grease on it. So we literally lubricate that surface where that weight from the trailer is pushing on the ball, and then the ball doesn't wear out anywhere near as fast, and the trailer doesn't wear out anywhere near as fast. But we've never seen anybody do it. But when you walk into it, you're going to get grease all over your clothes. Okay. So that's how we do it. And, we pay attention and we go, you know what? We don't want to walk into that greasy, trailer hitch anymore. Any comments on that, Cathy?
I don't know whether he's done that or not, Vince.
Mm-hmm. Well, you might want to mention it to him, see what he thinks.
Okay.
And I have a feeling if he has done it, yes.
No, go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
What I was going to say is if he has done it, he'll probably say, boy, that's the only other guy that I know that does that. And if he hasn't done it, he'll say, what a great idea. I'm going to do it from now on. Because it absolutely works. Yeah. It works. And there's one last thing about trailer hitches. The square, the part where the ball is attached that goes into the hitch, it's sloppy. Okay. They have to have some place so you can get that, square, the receiver to fit the hitch. And it flops around, and as you drive, it bangs around. And over time, it gets worse and worse and worse. More and more wear on it. So what we do is we make shims out of metal. And we fit them for the hole in the pin that goes into the hitch. And we shim those two parts where they go together so they don't wobble and flop around. And it makes for a much, much more comfortable ride. And you can make it out of aluminum, kind of like those, hunting signs are made out of that kind of aluminum. I'm not saying get, no hunting sign, but, if you can find some aluminum flashing. What I do is I take the aluminum, I cut it to the right length, wrap it around the square hitch. Okay. And then I use a ball peen hammer and I cut out the hole where the pin goes through with a ball peen hammer. So I have either 3 or 4 sides of that square tube, and it fits perfectly. Now be careful you can cut yourself with, sharp metal. But that's how I do it. And our hitches don't flop around like, most everybody else's does. So just one more thing about it, and one more tip from the book. Cathy, back to you.
Vince, I had a couple suggestions. We are still having pretty nice weather here, and I hang a lot of my clothes out. Almost all of them, especially now. But I would think if you have things that you want to get hung out and let them air dry, maybe like jackets, your dog bed covers, comforters, quilts, blankets, any of your bigger things that you can get all washed and ready to go for winter, and then you don't have to put them in your dryer. So I've actually done all that. I went through everything, and any of my throws, I just washed everything and hung them all out this week because we're still having nice weather. So maybe that will help somebody not use so much propane.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking out the window right now, and Mrs. Finelli has done that. So while I'm broadcasting today, she's got all kinds of things hung on the line, hung on the fence. It looks terrible. I mean, if we lived in a neighborhood, I'm sure there'd be all kinds of written complaints and fines about how it looks, the laundry being hung outside because, it's, covenants of deed restrictions and so forth about, living in a homeowners association kind of neighborhood. Well, we hang ours out. We don't try to be sloppy looking, but, if you have a bedspread, it's a bedspread. And if it's on the line, it's out there. And ours is in the sun, getting disinfected, with the natural light of the sun. So are the clothes, so are the blue jeans, so are the pillowcases, so are the blankets that the dogs use and so forth. It's all out there. And, that's what we do. And you can get, one of the best things that Lowe's has, Lowe's, the home improvement store, is the twine that they, provide for you to tie up your lumber if you buy lumber there. So on the way out the door, you've got your 2x4s or whatever you have that you want to tie and make sure it doesn't go flying down the road as you travel back home. You can get some twine. And what I do is instead of let's say I need 5 pieces of twine, to tie it up, I'll get whatever that length is, but I'll have it one continuous length. I won't cut it into 5. I'll leave it in one, and I'll tie it up 5 different ways so that I can make instead of 5 short pieces, 1 longer piece. And then what do? I recycle that Lowe's twine as a clothesline, and it's the best. It's the best clothesline I can think of. It's the right thickness. Now, it degrades over time. It lasts about 1.5 years, and then the ultraviolet rays of the sun will cause it to decompose, and then it'll break. And when it breaks, that's okay because the last time you went to Lowe's, you got some more. So, and I'm not saying go get it without buying something. So if you're buying something that you're going to tie up, that's what you get it in one piece rather than 5 pieces, and don't throw it away. Keep it for your clothesline. And it works great. So in the back of the house, we have a veranda, and there's a concrete floor, and there are posts that hold up the roof. And those posts are about 9 or 10 feet apart. I took some screw eyes, heavy duty screw eyes. I screwed them into these columns that are probably 8 by 8 cedar, and I tied the Lowe's twine between those screw eyes. It's at the right height, and over the years I've replaced it a bunch of times, but it's been 15 years and we've never had to buy a clothesline because Lowe's provides that when we buy lumber. Just a thought, and that's how we do it. So, Cathy, it's really interesting how our domestic engineer and the Finelli family think so much alike. Cathy and I will be right back after these few short commercial announcements for the final segment of USA Prepares Today. Class, one of the things I wanted to share with you today was that I decided to build a hen nest for our chickens. And here's what I did. I found a 2 by 8, maybe about 10 feet long. And I thought, what is the fastest, easiest, most durable way that I can build a quality hen nest? And I looked at all kinds of images on the internet. And I decided that we bought a pallet of buckets, 5-gallon buckets, but they're round. And that really wasn't conducive. And I didn't want the chickens to have to, kind of lay eggs on a rounded bottom surface. So I wanted it to be flat. So I went on the internet and I found a guy who was selling buckets, and he had square buckets. So these are about 5 gallons of capacity, and they happened to be cat litter buckets. So I wanted something that, didn't have insecticide or something like, toxic for the chickens. So it had cat litter on it. Tidy Cat is the brand. And they had these hinges, a lid that you'd flip the lid open and you could get out a scoop of cat litter. And cat litter is bentonite clay. Well, this guy must have saved a bunch of them. So he wanted $1.25 for each one. So we bought a lot of them, and maybe 12, 13, 14, something like that. And they were of similar size and color, which I liked a lot. And they had the lids that were hinged on. So what I did was I took these buckets and I lined them up on this board, and I put them edge to edge to edge so that they weren't pressing, they just were touching each other. And I put the edge, the small side, on this 2 by 8. And I took some pallet material, the pallet slats, and we have some that were unused. And I cut them 10 inches long with my miter saw. And I just put a 10-inch mark and cut them. And then I drilled a hole in each one, just one hole. So these pallet slats are roughly 3 inches wide, 10 inches long, made out of oak. And what I did was I lined these boards up. I lined the buckets up on the board, spaced them all out where I wanted them. And I drilled one hole in each one of these blocks of wood that I made. And for a sheetrock screw, 1.25 inches long. And I put this board in the bottom of the bucket against the back of the, back of the bucket. And I put one screw in it, and it holds the bucket from twisting and turning with one screw. That was my plan, and it worked perfectly. And so for $1.25 per bucket and a free board and a bunch of sheetrock screws and some pallet material, I have this hen nest. Now what I did was I wanted the buckets with the hinged lid. So I cut off the large part of the lid and I left the small part of the lid. Okay. So the small part of the lid that's still remaining on each one of these buckets keeps the hay from falling out and the eggs from rolling out of the bucket. So each chicken has her own apartment, and they can go in there and let's say 12 at a time can lay eggs. And we have 16 chickens, so it's way more than enough. So for just a few dollars, I built this hen nest. Now, if I had the website up and running, if we weren't trashed by these, the trolls, I would show you pictures of how I did it. And I think it's as good or better than anything I've seen on the internet, and it's certainly done for less money. Cathy, any comments?
Well, Vince, I think that we are going to have to be creative because we're probably not going to get what we need. And you just thought of a very simple, out-of-the-box situation or solution. But I think we're going to have to do that with a lot of what we need.
Right, and I had I bought a pallet of cinder concrete blocks for our raised bed garden, and I had maybe a pallet left. I bought a bunch of pallets of them, and I paid I think $1 and change a piece for these very large concrete blocks that were left over from, let's say, building a Walmart or something like that, with a split face. So they're 12 inches deep. These are they're very, very heavy concrete blocks, commercial grade, and I bought them inexpensively, and I just set the hen nest board with the hen nest on top of these 2 concrete blocks, and it's all stable and it doesn't wobble, and I think they're going to be perfectly happy with that. So yes, what we're going to have to do is figure out how to do it. We're going to do more with less. That's where we're headed. And so it worked out fine for the hen nest, and I have a bunch of other tips. Cathy, do you want to share some of yours?
Vince, I had 2 things I thought of. Christmas is coming, and people are going to ask us what we need, or we are going to give gifts to our loved ones. And I think that it might be a good idea to give them lists or buy them something that may be a quality item for the future, or a need that they may have that maybe they don't foresee, or ask for those yourself.
Okay, so here's some $5 gifts, class. That book I said about Black & Decker, the complete home wiring book, that is a gift. And that's something that if they actually read it, they will really appreciate it. Number 2, there's one on plumbing by Black & Decker. It's equally in the plumbing department. And then, of course, there's Dr. Shealy's Encyclopedia of Natural Remedies. It's another $5 gift, and you can find them on eBay until they get sold out, and then it'll be tougher to find them. Those are 3 things that I think that are wonderful gifts that are thoughtful, and gifts that are durable. And we don't give any fluffy gifts and so forth. Cathy, thank you so much.